sheep whom ye have shepherded over have turned against me. They have broken the holy covenant between me and you. They have whored themselves with idols, whom they have crafted with thine own hand, and they have bowed themselves and worshipped these abominations. They have said, blessed be these idols, whom have led and provided for them 1,000 years. Since they have done this thing, and taken my blessing, and given it to the idols, my wrath is poured out upon the whole world. A decrepit sickness has been unleashed into the world, for all of their wickedness and worshiping death. They shall become decrepit things, spreading death. This is my judgment on all those who transgress my laws, and who has defiled my covenant. Death. Death. But not for you and your brother. You shall stay here in my holy mountain as I test the entire world to see if they shall serve me or choose death. I have spoken, so shall it be.
Hello, and thank you for watching another telecast of The Word of the Most High Yah. I'm your host, Priest of the Most High, Lucifer the Lambew. And today we're going to be talking about Miriam, leprosy, the fact that Moses had, or how they suggested that Moses had more than one wife. And we're going to also, before we even begin all that, we're going to go back. I'm going to bring you that extra piece on dealing with Israel's murmuring, our ancestors. All right, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and get it. Turn with me to Numbers chapter 14, and I'm going to read you verse 27 through 29. Read, translate. Okay, so here we are. Numbers chapter 14, starting at verse 27. How long shall I bear with this evil congregation, which murmur against me? I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me. Say unto them, as truly as I live, saith the Lord, as ye have spoken in mine ears, so will I do to you. Your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and all that were numbered of you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, which have murmured against me. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to you, which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. Now, from 20 years old and over, that was the same age that was fit for the army, fit for the military in Israel. 20 years old and over. And the murmuring, again, when our brethren and our sisters talk shit about the man of God, they're not talking shit about the man of God. They're talking shit about the Most High. Because the Most High sends the man of God out to do this work. On those street corners to do this work, waking up, doing our best to wake up the children of Israel, to do our part, our brethren, to this Israelite truth, to the truth of these scriptures. On the highways and byways, you know, this place, that place, here a little, there a little. But, you know, Israel, our people have a history of being like crabs in a bucket, constantly running their mouth about, you know, the people who are out there doing this truth. But yet it's not, who are we? We're just men, right? And unless the Most High says otherwise, you're really not talking about the man of God, whether it be from talking about Israelite clothing that we have on, whether it's talking about the holes in the wall, whether it's talking about, you know, our brethren out there doing this in truth and spirit, whether it's about how they look in terms of being scruffy looking or whatever the case may be. Murmuring is unrighteous. And it's not against the man of God doing the work. It's against the Most High that you speak. That those who do those things, who make it a habit or who engage in murmuring, it's who you're really speaking against. You know, and a lot of it has to do with jealousy too. That that the Most High is working with this camp, not you know, or that the Most High is working with this man of God and not another man of God, or not another person who aspires to be a man of God or aspires to be whatever he aspires to be. You know, maybe jealousy that causes you to murmur because a brother over here got the Israelite clothing on and you still wearing your baseball cap and your, you know, and your blue jeans and whatever whatnot. And so you want to murmur or talk against the brother because in reality, you know, you're feeling, that person who is doing it may be feeling insecure about their own place in Israel. And if murmuring is what they resort to, then they maybe should feel, you know, uneasy, because 2/3 ain't gonna make it, and those 2/3 will be fulfilled. All right. But murmuring, the root of it is an ill faith in the Most High. Really, it all comes down to the Most High and your relationship with Him. You see, because if you trust and love the Most High, then even though the Most High is working with another brother over here, like in this case Moses, to redeem Israel, help bring Israel into their land, you know, that's not a problem because you have a relationship with the Most High and you're thankful to the Most High for even bringing up somebody that would be able to bring Israel into their land, because that is the goal. The goal should be returning back to our heritage as a nation as well as individual. The goal should be having control over our food or water or you know, our military, our nation, you know, the kingship being returned. That should be the goal for anybody who cares about the Most High and cares about our nation, Israel. But see, again, there's a lot of murmurers even within Israel who care more about their own personal status, who cares more about what the Most High ain't doing or is doing or should have been doing, or they think he should have been doing for them, than they do the overarching goal, which is and should always be Israel and the will of the Most High, what the Most High wants to do. You see, because you're focused on the Most High, you're not focusing on the little things. Now, I don't mean, you know, it's not murmuring if the man of God is revealing sin, and you know, letting people know what they're doing that displeases the Most High. That's not murmuring. It's not, righteousness is not murmuring. All right, Murmuring is that wicked shit that people engage in because they can't see or find no fault in the man of God, you know, in righteousness as per the scriptures. So they want to talk about something else or divert the attention from what they can't deal with, which is the scriptures, to some foolishness or some nonsense or some non-whimsical garbage that really it has no real, it's just vanity. It has no real depth of knowledge or information for anybody in this truth. All right, and going over these things, which Most High is having me show you the end of murmuring and how the Most High takes that personal and how He's not going to just let that go unpunished. In this case, the murmuring of the people against Moses, which was really against the Most High, cost that generation the ability to even enter into the land of milk and honey, into the land that they had been promised from the Most High when they were in Egypt. So it cost them their being able to see the kingship, the kingdom. It cost them being able to see with their own physical eyes the rebuilding of their nation and the redemption of their nation. So it was very costly, extremely costly, because they refused to bridle their tongue, because they refused to be humble and to stay in their lane, because they refused to allow the Most High to do what He does, whether they understood it 100% or not. Whether, you know, the Most High don't have to clear His thinking, His plans with you. You don't have to clear it. Praise be to Yah. And if He's bringing up a brother in one of your camps or whatever or not, and he ain't working or he ain't bringing you up just yet or at that time or whatever, or enough in your sight, oh fucking well. Right? It is better that your brother be uplifted, even if that uplifting in the camp or in whatever you guys are doing is above you to do this work, than it would be for you to tell, because it needs to be done. Right? Then it would be for you to tear that brother down and try to find some fault without a cause to try to justify why you feel that he shouldn't have been uplifted, or he shouldn't have been utilized in a way in which for the betterment of Israel, of your people, of your brethren, over maybe you. And it's the same thing that goes with these camps. I mean, it is righteousness to talk about the wickedness of the Star of David. It's righteousness to talk about the wicked, or the so-called Shield of David. It's wicked. It is though it's righteousness to talk about that wickedness. It is righteousness to talk about any people of Israel entertaining idols and entertaining idolatry and anything of that nature. Anything that is sin. And making sure to bring it out to that brothers, but if they won't listen, even to the congregation, that's righteousness. Praise be to Yah, because that's what the Spirit gives a man of God to do, to tell Israel its sins, that Israel may have the opportunity to turn back from those sins and thus be in a position to be saved. But then again, you got to have that discernment between righteousness and wickedness. Telling somebody their sins and murmuring about stuff that just ain't nothing, based on garbage. Or you gotta know the difference between telling people their sins or somebody else just going around spreading unsubstantiated rumors and engaging in gossip, which is again part of the whole murmuring that the scriptures and the Most High rallied so much against, so much so where these people, our ancestors, wasn't even allowed to go into the land of milk and honey. And remember, they had just come from Egypt. They had just come from slavery and captivity there. They had some faith in the Most High in the fact that they came out with Moses, and the fact that they crossed the Red Sea, and the fact that they didn't turn tail and run, which they tried to do several different times. So they had a measure of faith, but clearly not enough. And that measure of faith was paper thin and hung by a thread every 5 seconds. That's what the Most High was basically saying and talking about when he referred to them murmuring against him, and the many different things that they did that were shows of acts of ill faith and unfaithfulness. And that's the reason why also the Spirit tells the men of God to teach in these telecasts, and I'm sure all around the world and all around these different camps with men of God that are moved to do this by the Spirit of the Most High. Not for any gain, not for any status, not for any money, not for any of those things, but for the Most High only. And of course for the redemption of Israel, and as a sacrifice and humility and humbleness for his fellow brethren. But you see, that's the reason why it is preached to stay humble, right? And to do this truth with truth and spirit, truth and fire, and sincerity, of course, because while you do something is as important as what you're doing, right? Gossiping can still be gossiping even if it's true, right? I mean, you got people in camps or whatever, we're not talking about other people's shortcomings, other brothers' shortcomings, right? But now, see, that brother was already made aware. Maybe the brother was made aware of it. Maybe the brother was working on it, been working on it, whatever the case may be. But, you know, maybe somebody in one of these camps is bringing it up over and over again, not to edify the brother or to try to get the brother to be on the right path or to try to help the brother, but simply to try to tear them down. Not like you know, I have personal experience with that, because in truth, you know, I'm in with Lambew Ministries, and there's just 2 of us. But the Spirit still teaches because the Spirit knows, right? I mean, not in terms of like religiously, but you know, brothers been in situations and seen situations where people come against somebody not because necessarily of what they've done, but because they want to beat them down and make them feel less than, so that person can feel better about themselves. And the Spirit tells us that this is going on in the camps, in many different camps, you know. And it should, you know, with the Spirit of the Most High, it should stop. I mean, if you have a problem with your brother with something that he's doing or saying, talk to that brother directly. If that brother doesn't want to take reproach or to take correction, you know, then you can you know, bring another person or two to talk to that brother. If he still doesn't, then you take it to the congregation. That's what the scriptures basically more or less says. But now, if you talk to that brother and you know, maybe you or maybe other people talk to that brother or whatever, whatnot, and that brother is doing the corrections, you know, to the best of his ability, you know, it is not spiritual meat. It is not holiness. It is not of the Most High to constantly utilize those things to try to break that brother and make that brother turn away from the faith, or make that brother not you know, not feel like he can strive or move forward in the truth because of something that, you know, maybe you and him or your congregation and that individual was dealing with or had dealt with years ago or a while, or had been put away for whatever reason. Okay? So again, there's a difference between gossip, you know, spreading rumors, and some gossip could even be true, but because of the way that, or the reason why you're doing it, now it's rather than being righteous rebuke or righteous correction, now it's just a form of murmuring and a form of spreading rumors and gossip, because of that same spirit, because the reason why you're doing it, those who this applies, is because you're just jealous. So one of the things is the murmurings teaching and the murmurings precepts that comes from the scriptures. One of the things that's so important about it is to show, you know, how spiritually, those things have consequences. And that's the reason why you should always be, recruit, humble and meek in your spirit. You know, if somebody gets uplifted over you, oh fucking well. Right? I mean, for instance, say, you know, somebody's calling you a novice. Somebody else is getting called, learned or whatever in this truth. You know, maybe some of you guys are tired of being called recruits. Maybe you guys been sitting here learning these scriptures and with the men of God and studying to show yourself approved, and out there on those street corners, day in, day out, week in, week out, whatever, whatnot. And you know you're tired of being fucking called a recruit. All right, recruit. Be humble. Be meek. Be small. Don't look for the uplifting in the sight of your brothers and uplifting in the sight of even the men of Israel. It is more important that if somebody's going to get pleased with what you're doing, what you're saying, the work that of your hands, the pushing of this truth, it is more important that that person who recognizes or who is pleased by your work be the Most High. If there's only one to be, let it be Him. Lest you get the admiration of all your brethren and yet get the reproof of the Most High. And you look inside your life and look inside your heart and look inside your mind and find the things that you do that displease Him and therefore be displeased with you. That would be the worst scenario, or not a good scenario. And that's why, again, it's important to stay humble and to be humble in your spirit, because again, who the Most High works with, He works with. And that doesn't mean just because He's uplifting the brother over here that you ain't got your turn, or he ain't gonna do nothing, or He has no plans to do nothing with you. You don't know what His plans are in that such matter unless He gives it to you, unless He provides that information. And how many times a brother, because they're too busy coveting what somebody else got, or coveting what the Spirit is working with somebody else for or with, how many times that brother gets twisted all up, and now sin's crouching at his door, and that which would have been to his benefit no longer is, because of jealousy, because of hard-heartedness or hard-hearted feelings over some petty shit that may have happened a little while ago, or should have already been put away, but yet you're harboring it because you're already jealous that this brother is being uplifted. It could be, and sisters too, it could happen with them as well. But again, this telecast is for the men, but it does have applications for women as well. Maybe a sister got married to a man that another sister was had an eye on, maybe interested in, maybe thought of, or whatever, whatnot. And there's jealousy there. Maybe there's jealousy because a sister got maybe her husband is more prominent than another sister's husband. In the camp or whatever, whatnot, or one sister is more sought after, or even thought of as not knowledgeable by the rest of the sisters over another, or whatever the case may be. That can be easily a test for anyone in this truth, looking and watching somebody else in this truth and trying to judge their relationship with God based on that other person. That's why the scriptures say, do not make another man your flesh. Do not make another person's flesh your flesh. Because when things don't work out the same way, it leads to jealousy. It leads to covetousness, which leads to jealousy. And it's unnecessary. You should be, if you have the love of the Most High in you, you should be happy for your brother. Yeah, don't get it twisted. Some things is just wickedness. Some people, even in this truth, trying to walk around acting like they're Yeshua, trying to walk like they're the comforter or something of that nature. Not talking about nobody in particular, but I guess you can see where I'm going with this. That's wickedness. There's only one Yeshua. Only one comforter, so to speak.
battle between the forces of good.
One of us will die.
And the powers of darkness have eclipsed, leaving the balance broken. The darkness has blocked the entrance to the holy mountain, severing man's access to the Most High. Lucifer has been reunited with Sakuma, and not a moment too soon. The darkness is now in control of CERN's portal, and with it, all the powers of hell are spilling forth into this world. An unstoppable tide of demons at its disposal. No one or nothing will stand in the way of the Queen of the Damned. Beginning this summer, the lampshades are reunited in the never-ending battle against evil. In the fourth installment of the Mirror Images saga, directed by Sakuma Z. Lambew, written by Lucifer D. Lambew, and Lambew's Brothers film, Mirror Images 4, Queen of the Damned. Coming soon. To the Lampshades Network on YouTube.com.
You know, that's just the truth. People trying to walk around, some people in some of these fringe camps or some of these camps that try to act as if, you know, they have some prominent position like in heaven, like with the Most High, literally. And they're talking for themselves, about themselves, literally. Okay, that's just wickedness. And anybody who studies to show themselves approved know that that's not something that you're going to be, that you put your faith in. Right? These would-be antichrists that are jealous of Yeshua, and therefore they try to discount the whole New Testament, and then try to put themselves in a position where everybody should be listening to them. Right? And again, that's not murmuring, talking about those things. That's not foolish conversation or bad conversation to be having. Exposing wickedness is the job of the men of God. Wickedness that you can discern because you have a relationship with the Most High and you study to show yourself approved, and you have the Spirit of the Most High, and it's for the right reasons. Right? To help your brethren, and in such a way which, if they be willing, could come back to the Most High in truth. Okay. Again, this is a strong teaching. I'm finding myself saying that more and more, but it's true. And if it be meat for you, it be meat. If you can accept it, you can accept it. If not, the Most High giving you eyes that can see and ears that can hear. Then you're seeing and you're hearing it. All right. Verse 30. This is still Numbers chapter 14, verse 39. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb, the son of Ishunat, and Joshua, the son of Nun. But your little ones, which ye said should be a prey, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. All right, so the little ones, these guys have been talking mess about the Most High, through talking mess about Moses, saying that the Most High, that they brought him out basically from Egypt to be slaughtered, basically, to be a prey, that the little ones to be basically killed. But see, what they didn't understand was talking this crap about Moses, thinking they were talking about Moses. It was really, the Most High was really listening to them and taking everything that they said personally. He's like, oh my goodness, basically, you're saying that the Most High brought your kids out, your little ones, to be like destroyed and torn apart. I mean, how horrible is that? People's words, making the Most High out to be some kind of an ogre. So the Most High gave them up, to their words, to what they were saying. And even that which he had intended to do, which was to bring them into the land and to defeat the Anakim, basically the giants with them, he postponed all that and took a detour, which cost them 40 years and their very lives. Verse 32. But as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in this wilderness, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years, and bear your whoredoms, until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. After the number of the days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years. And ye shall know my breach of promise. So he knew that he had promised them to bring them into the land, but they had breached the promise, and therefore he gave them over to that breach. Right? That promise was predicated on their faith. Their faith in him that he would be able to do and deliver that which he promised to do and deliver. That's why it's so important not to put your faith in men. That's why it's so important not to get yourself accustomed to trying to put another man's flesh on your flesh. Because in doing so, you're showing a breach of promise. The promise is between the individual Udite here in this Babylon, both as an individual and of course as a nation, but as an individual as well. The promise is based on the faith that we have as individuals have in the Most High. And it's the same breakdown that it is for camps as well. From the high echelon all the way down to the low. Right? You have there is a promise that is the foundation of that promise is faith. No matter what camp you come from, for example, no matter what camp you come from, and we all know the different names of all the different various camps. No matter who you study under or who you consider your elders to be or whatever, whatnot, there is still a promise, covenant, so to speak, between you as an individual and the Most High that has nothing to do with your camp, has nothing to do with your teachers, has nothing to do with your elders. And your trust should always, first and foremost, be in the Most High. Not your teachers, your elders, your camp, whatever. Not even which tribe you're from. Right? And that faith is in the Most High to do that which he promised he would do, and that is to deliver us from our captivity into the land of milk and honey. Right? And those who keep that promise, or those who keep their faith, and their works working hand in hand together towards that promise, are going to be the ones that are delivered. Right? I mean, that's our faith. That's what your faith is based on. Your relationship with the Most High, the promise, coming back to the Most High in truth and sincerity, and coming back to his law, statutes, and commandments. All of which is necessary. You can't be talking about you have the faith in the Most High, but you're sinning every day of the week and you have no care for his law, statutes, and commandments. You're saying you love him, but I mean, that's hypocrisy. Now everybody sins and comes short of the glory of the Most High, but again, that's not the plan. That's not the that's not the goal, right? Sin less. Don't increase your sins, decrease them. Do your best to get rid of them. Resist the devil and he shall flee from you, as the scriptures say. Right? That being not just talking about Esau and whatever, but that being the devil in your life, the demonic things in your life, the sins, the whatever idols that you may still have around your house. Take stock of yourselves, O Israel. Take stock of yourselves, recruit. Take stock of your surroundings. Take stock of your doings, and amend your ways to the best of your abilities. Now. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till some other time, some distant time in the future. Do it right now. Even to those brothers who are listening and who have been going over these Bible studies for as long as they have, as long as you have, and you are going out to those street corners and preaching on a Sabbath day, spreading the word on a Sabbath day, dropping this truth on whatever day of the week that you can, basically based on your off days or whatever. Even to those brothers, take stock of yourselves, take stock of your lives, because when the Most High shows up, it's gonna be too late for all that. He's gonna see you are as you are and what you have done. And past righteousness is not going to be an excuse for present wickedness. Past righteousness is not going to be a shield against present, sins, afflictions, based on something. It's just sins and wickedness. All right, you're not going to be able to say, well, I was in this truth for 2, 5, 10 years, and then I fell out about a year, 6 months before the Most High shows up, and then think to yourself, well, I'll be able to still tell the Most High, well, I was in it for 10 years, even though I fell out with with my camp, and I started to be a drunkard, and I started to beat my fellow slaves in terms of like just use the scriptures to just crush people and to throw just throw mud on people unjustifiably. But hey, just because that person may have been just feeling slated because of whatever camp they came from. And you're not going to be able to tell the Most High, well, I was with you, I was doing right for 10 years. Even though this last 6 months, even though this last fucking 4 months, I've been doing all this other stuff. I've been, being 100% opposite of what I was, or you knew me to be the 10 years. It's not going to be a fucking excuse. You're not going to be able to say that. The Most High ain't gonna take that and go, oh, you know what, you're right, you gave me 10 good years, so you fell out the last 6 months, no big deal. He's not gonna, that's not gonna happen. Okay? Also, the interesting thing about this 40 years to reflect the 40 days that they went out to spy the land. I'm going to go ahead and read that again because I want to go talk about that a little bit more. Verse 33. And your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years and bear your whoredom until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. After the number of the days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. You see, us being in Babylon, right, is a reflection of our people's breach of promise, breach of the promise that the Most High gave us, breach of our end of the faith in that promise that we should have had, and the faith that we had in the Most High. Our breach and walking contrary to the Most High, thus him walking contrary to us, thus the reason why our people have been in this captivity, in this Babylon, in this separation from our homeland and our God for almost 400 years. Almost 400 years. Right? It's kind of like 100 years for, 400 years is like 104. And And it's interesting, just as a note, and I don't know how true this is with the other men of God all over the country, all over the world, but this is our generation. Me personally, just in all truth, when we know that the end of the 400-year curse is going to be, as per the scriptures, in 2000, by the end of 2000. Thank you. Thank you. But I can't read. Let him go.
You should have killed me. You should have killed me, boy. Should have killed me. I'm gonna get you. Get you. And your little bitch boy.
It's real. You must focus. You must allow your weapon to become a part of you. And this truth through you, through the Most High is working with you in your hands. But you have to be, it has to be real. You have to have faith in the Most High. You have to come back to Him in truth and sincerity to the best of your ability, and stop playing around. Right? Because He deserves it. He deserves to have a real man of God who's out there doing this work, not for money, not for gain, not for attention, not for status, and not for bragging rights, but for Him and for Him only. Because it's the truth. Alright. Verse 38. But, and if that friend is watching, not that I would think that you would, but if you are watching, my condolences. And the condolences of Lambew's ministry for your mom, for our mom. And of course, and that goes out to anybody else who has lost anyone. Again, it is our faith that we will see them again, and our condolences for you as well. But Yeshua, verse number 38. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Uphannah, which were of the men that were to search the land, lived still, And Moses told these things unto all the children of Israel, and the people mourned greatly. They mourned. You see, they mourned when they found out the recompense and the punishment for their murmuring, for them running their fucking mouth. They mourned. You know, it's easy to talk crap about the man of God, to talk crap about the Most High while you're living in safety, while you have plenty of food to eat, and you have plenty of water to drink, you know, and you have every expectation that it's gonna stay that way. It's easy to slip into this belief and thought that you're protected, even though you're not under the covering of the Most High. Your faith's not in Him. It's still easy for you to believe in your rebelliousness that somehow you're justified in talking the crap that you're talking. Those who are, again, this is for those who it applies to. But it's easy to think that you're justified because you haven't been punished. Calamity hasn't come your way. You haven't been, you're not under the knife, right? So it's easy for you to think that in your vanity, that you can say what you want because, hey, if there was a problem with the Most High, if the Most High had a problem with it, then He would have dealt with you by now, right? But then when that calamity comes, when that judgment comes, when hell opens up before you, just for running your mouth, because the Most High heard what you were saying and judged you for it, all of a sudden you're mourning, all of a sudden you're crying, all of a sudden you're so fucking sorrowful. Right? And that was the state of our people. And of course, that wouldn't have been the case if you had just had discernment and you just bridled your fucking tongue and watched your fucking mouth. You know, it's like what Moses said to Aaron when his two sons died, right? Remember them? They were the ones that gave strange fire to the Most High. And he told them, he's like, hey man, basically, for lack of a better term, watch your fucking mouth. I'm sure you're mad about your sons being killed, basically, but they were wicked, and it would be wise, basically, he was saying to him, to shut your fucking mouth and don't say shit, because the Most High is listening, He's watching, and there could be more deaths based solely on the fact that. Or partly on the fact that people don't know how to watch their mouth. They don't know how to bridle their fucking tongue. And for what? What do you gain from little stabs or little, jabs at the men of God? A chuckle or two or whatever at their expense. What would you gain when the risk is so much more higher? Because it's not the man of God that protects himself. It's not the man of God that speaks in his own defense. It's not the man of God that rises in the defense of the man of God. It's the Most High. And everything that you do against the man of God unrighteously, you do against the Most High. And He is stern. He got no problem with burning the motherfucker. Because them rising up against the man of God, He sees it as them rising up against Him. And you're not going to change that nature of Him to protect the man of God. To stand as a shield for the man of God. To act as a retard in defense of the man of God. It's a job that He does extremely well. Extremely well. Okay. Now let's go ahead and get on Moses while we're on the subject and about his wives and such. I believe I preached about this before, but I just left chapters and whatever for study purposes, but now we'll actually go into it. Okay. Turn with me to chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. We're still in Numbers. Okay? So, again, chapter 12. Let's get it. Don't hate me for going over multiple wives. Don't hate the messenger. I'm just giving the information from the scriptures and letting you know the truth. If it be me for you, it be me for you. If not, then well, more bitches for the rest of us. Not really bitches, but more women for the rest of us. More women of Israel. Pray the Most High, that much for certain. Okay. So, chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. Alright. And it says, well, you know what? What I'm saying bitches to, I'm not really, again, if it be me to be me, I'm not really talking about the women of Israel who are doing what they're supposed to be doing, who come back to the Most High and choosing sincerity. Obviously not. I'm really referring to, especially in this circumstance and situation, you got the concubines and you got the women of Israel who aren't coming back to the Most High and truth and sincerity, and who are off, way off. Okay, so anyway, back to what I was saying. Chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, and it reads, and again, I make that special note because I know that there are people who are watching who is not accustomed to seeing the telecast. Maybe your first time, maybe your second time. And for those of you who have been watching from the beginning, you already know. But for those of you who may be just not coming in, so that you know a better breakdown of, a quick breakdown of what I'm talking about. And if you are new, welcome to the telecast. And make sure that, if it be meat for you, you go back and you watch the telecasts. The word of Yah from the beginning, and follow along from the beginning. It's a series, rather than just the latest and greatest, but that you actually go back and make sure, even if you think you or feel that you already understand the material, I would highly suggest that you go back from the beginning and watch from the beginning, because then you have a better understanding, and obviously the Spirit of the Most High works in such that you, if you have the time, and if you are so inclined, would go back and watch them all. And also, in addition, and I've talked about this before, but Spirit fills me in the mood to talk about it again. This telecast is not for exclusively the people of this generation, of this time. Pray the Most High. The promise and the faith in the Most High, my faith in the Most High, is that He will redeem Israel and bring us the remnant, the 144,000 and the 1/3 out of Babylon into the land of milk and honey. It is my faith that that's going to happen really soon. It can happen any time now, between like today to the close of business in 2019. Starting the beginning of 2020. That's my faith and my hope, based on the scriptures. So I ain't making this, right, for me or for the people of our generation, because pray be to Yah, they'll be gone. So the primary is for the people of the next generation, of the people who, of our Israelite brethren who are not called in the first call, who are not part of the 144,000 and who are not part of the 1/3. Right? These telecasts, they're primarily for, the Israelites that are dealing with the soon coming tribulation period, who may, at this time that we're making this, who may be part of that 2/3 or that 2/3 mentality, but after seeing the salvation of Israel and the remnant through the Most High, after seeing the Most High's return, after experiencing the wars and whatever whatnot that's gonna take place, that they do in fact come back to the Most High, and that this may be utilized for them to do His work. Now, I'm sure in this post-apocalyptic future, which is coming really soon, there's going to be the mark of the beast, which is already starting at this point, but it'll probably be in full bloom by the time those people, those Israelites, made the decision to turn back to the Most High. And there probably will be some sort of restriction on Bibles, restriction on being able to read the Bible and whatever whatnot, restriction on having access to the Bible. And who knows, these telecasts may be all that they have to work with. So whereas, pray be, and their level of understanding of the scriptures may be between recruit, novice, whatever, all the way up to experienced, and whatever. So all those things are kept in mind, but this, again, the Spirit of the Most High is what works on this Bible study and whatever whatnot in this telecast. And the message isn't always for the intended audience. The message is, is for whoever the Spirit puts on them to receive the message. I got one of our subscribers that said that we said his name, or the Spirit testified to him while he was watching one of the videos. It was totally unintended, but the Spirit wanted to give him a message. Well, that's just the Spirit. And that stuff's happening all the time. Just like, though it's the intended target or the intended audience, that future church, that future remnant Israel, not remnant, but that future Israelites who, may not be on board today, but after all these things come to pass, now they're on board, but it's, the Bible is being restricted. They're part of the tribulation period, the worst period on history, that will be in history. And maybe this telecast that they got, that they downloaded at some point or another, or that is available online for whatever short time it will be available for before it's canceled, or somebody else downloaded it, got it, or whatever not, and now they're sitting in the back watching it on that in order to try to understand or try to see how to do this walk, even though the situation on their end would be a lot different than the situation is on this end right now, but the Spirit is still the same. And the desire and need for the men of God to do the work of the Most High, despite the situation and circumstances, is still primary. Right? It doesn't matter whether the day is bright, whether the day is foggy, whether the day is night. The men of God is still expected to do the work and be the men of God. But of course, even Yeshua said, the time is coming where basically the lights could be gone and no work can be done. But during this tribulation period, people are going to be Israelites, Jakes, are still going to be doing what they can, even though it's darkness. All right, so let's get it. Chapter 12, verse 1. And Miriam and Aaron's... Okay. And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it. Okay, so this wife was an Ethiopian woman, right? But if you look at Exodus chapter 2, verse 16 through 21, let's go ahead and get that while keeping what we're having here. We'll go to Exodus chapter 2. Exodus. hold on for a quick second while I get that. Exodus chapter 2, and we're going to read verse 16 through 21. Now remember, this woman that we just talked about is the Ethiopian. And let's look at who this woman is. Verse 16 says, Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flocks. And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, How is it that you are come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock. And he said unto his daughters, And where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him that he may eat bread. And Moses went, and Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. Okay. So she was a Midianite, the daughter of the priest of Midian. All right, so it's not the same person. Now, if you look at chapter 3, same. We're still in Exodus here. Look at chapter 3, verse 1. Chapter 3, verse 1. It says, Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, another name for the priest of Midian, his father-in-law, because they call him Reuel, and now they're calling him Jethro. His father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he had the flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. Okay, so his first wife, the Midianite, and the second one is the Ethiopian. All right, now turn with me to chapter 18. We're going to read verses 1 through 7, 17, and 27. All right, we're still backtracking here, and we're still in Exodus. So in Exodus chapter 18, I'm going to read verse 1 through 7. It goes, When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel his people, and that the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, and had sent her back, and her 2 sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom, for he said, I have been an alien in a strange land, and the name of the other was Eliezer, for the God of my father said, He was mine help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses, unto the wilderness, where he encamped at the mount of God. And he said unto Moses, I thy father-in-law, Jethro, am come unto thee, and thy wife, and her 2 sons with her. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and did obeisance, and kissed him. And they asked each other of their welfare, and they came into the tent. Now, notice in this, there's no backbiting. There's no Miriam and Aaron ain't talking mess against him for his wife, Jethro's daughter. At this time. Why? Because again, she is the Midianite. The other one that they did talk mess against was the Egyptian. All right, now let's go to verse 17, same chapter, chapter 18, verse 17, and it says, And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, The thing that thou doest is not good. And he's referring to the fact that He's the only one judging Israel. Moses is the only one judging Israel, and he needed more people to help him in this task. Also, look at verse 27. And it says, and Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way into his own land. Now, the father-in-law departed, but
now is the time, O Israel, to make your choice. Come back to serving the God of Israel in spirit and in truth, while there's still time. The Most High has sent his servants to guide you in his ways. Put your faith in Yahshua HaMashiach, for this is the way, O Israel, walk therein. Or choose the world to your peril. But be not lukewarm, for in that day, for those of you who are lukewarm, he will spit you out of his mouth, and there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So choose, and choose now.
Doesn't say that the wife and the kids left with him. They stayed. Also, I read that to show that to you in order as a precept to show actually the reason, one of the reasons why Miriam and Aaron was basically saying, well, has the Lord spoke through Moses alone? Because the Spirit went out and spoke to and started working with and dealing with other people. Okay. All right. And it's also to show that racism wasn't the primary reason Aaron and Miriam spoke against Moses. Again, Moses' brother-in-law, actually his brother-in-law went with him. If you go to, let's see here, if you go to this chapter, see if we're back in Numbers here. Go to Numbers chapter 10. We're in verse 29 through, we're going to read verse 29 through 33. Okay. Alright, and it says, and Moses said unto Hobeb, the son of Rugel, remember, Rugel, his also name was Jethro, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, we are journeying unto the place of which the Lord said, I will give it to you. Come thou with us, and we will do thee good. For the Lord hath spoken good concerning Israel. And he said unto him, I will not go, but I will depart to mine own land and to my kindred. And he said, leave us not, I pray thee, forasmuch as thou knowest how we are to encamp in the wilderness, and thou mayest be to us instead of eyes. And it shall be, if thou go with us, it shall be that what goodness the Lord shall do unto us, the same will we do unto thee. And they departed from the mount of the Lord 3 days' journey, and the ark of the covenant and the Lord went before them in the 3 days' journey to search out resting place for them. All right. So, again, it wasn't necessarily about racism necessarily because, Ruel or Jethro's son went with Moses. Moses had his wife and his children. Again, these were not Israelites. And yet they were there. All right. So the Ethiopian was just one of those straws that broke the camel's back. But again, it was jealousy. They didn't like the fact that Most High was working with Moses. He had more than one wife. He had extra. And these wives were not of Israel. One was a Midianite, one was an Egyptian, both of which is not Israelites. Okay? Now let's get her turning into leprosy. Let's get the definition of white here real quick before we leave, because I know we're running out of time. Chapter 12, verses 10 through 12. So turn with me to chapter 12, and we're going to read 10 and 12. 10 through 12. And Miriam, and we read the first part. No, we didn't read the first part already. Okay. Chapter 12, verse 10 and 12. 10 through 12. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. What's the definition of leprous? White as snow, as per the scriptures. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moses, Alas, my Lord, I beseech thee, lay not the sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and where we have sinned. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed, when he cometh out of his mother's womb. So, what's leprosy? White as snow, as one that is dead. Right? Now, there's also a consuming away of the flesh aspect of leprosy. Yes. But the fact of the matter is, white skin is leprosy. Because everybody else was black. Moses was black. Aaron was so-called black people. So-called Negroes. It was a Negro nation. Can't get around that. Can't get around that. So all these, melanin deficient, loving people. That's not the picture of Israel. That's just what it is. You just got to deal with that. Praise be to Yah. Not that it has anything to do with color in and of itself, because it doesn't. These lepers, they were Israelites too, right? Miriam turned leprous white as snow. That didn't stop her from being an Israelite. I mean, they put her outside the camp, of course, because like the Spirit has taught before, that the Most High don't like blemishes, you know, and he didn't want her leprous ass anywhere near him. While that was, of course, the case. But again, she was still an Israelite. She didn't lose her Israelitism just because she was leprous. So it is really got nothing to do with color in that degree. But so that it be known, leper is the color white. Be a leper. Have pigmentation and lose it. All right, there it is. So thank you for watching the word of the Most High Yah, as it is written. Man can't live by bread alone, but by the very word that cometh out of the mouth of the Most High. So again, thanks for watching the word of the Most High Yah. I'm your host, priest of the Most High, Lucifer D. Lambew, and I will see you again next time. It's not destroyed, actually. What they were called is, they were whitewashed.
Okay.
There was a Renaissance period of time where they basically took, the conquering nation basically took the image of Christ, which, you know, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, is a black man. And in Revelation they tell you what color he is because it tells you that. And they made him look white, and they made the Bible look white. What color is that? Jews are an olive color. Do you know what the word Jew comes from? Yeah, what the word Jew comes from? What's the word Jew short for? But you know that they're olive color, but you don't know what the name of them comes from. I'll answer that question. The name of Jews comes from the house of Judah. And the house of Judah, incidentally, of the neighborhoods here in America. We are from the house of Judah as put forth in the truth. There's nothing scriptural that tells us it's okay that you don't agree with it, because truth is truth whether you want to accept it or not. If you don't believe,
That's why I'm listening. That's why I'm tolerating you.
you don't have to tolerate me because it's not my truth. It's the truth of the Bible, the very book that you say you represent. You can say to yourself, I don't believe this aspect, I don't believe that aspect, but you're not going against me, you're going against the very book that you say you're here to preach, teach, and show us. Because they told me, I didn't write that, I'm not the author of that.
I'm not one of your church.
The author of that. I don't have a church.
Yeah, I'm not one of your stewards. I'm a teacher, so you know, I don't need you to try to teach me.
Okay.
You understand that?
Okay.
Don't try to
You say that you're a teacher. Fine,
I don't want you to try to teach
So when you say you're a teacher,
Yes, sir.
the question is this. Okay.
in your mind.
As a teacher,
This is the question in your
sure,
mind.
but if you're a teacher, then you're here to
This is the question in your
teach.
mind.
So how can you teach if you can't answer questions which potential students may ask you? You're a teacher, so could you teach the $1 million question that's on the hearts and minds of the Negroes in this country, which is where they come from? It's in your book.